Good morning. Welcome. I am Dr. Pauline Jones Furman, the Executive Director and owner of the Center for Individual and Family Counseling. My personal desire is to inspire love, hope, and healing. I am delighted to present my third podcast today, continuing to thank our essential workers, and specifically today is firefighters. The title of today's podcast is 3-Alarm Wellness for Firefighters. Today I have Eric Ivey, a firefighter for 27 years, with me to share his professional life and his personal story about his profession. I'm delighted that you are here, Eric. Welcome.
Thank you.
Fabulous. Would you please share a bit about your inspiration for becoming a firefighter, and where did it originate from?
Sure, no problem. But first, I'd like to, if I may, coming from a second alarm fire just 5 hours ago, I have to give, grace and honor to God for allowing me this time to be here. And also thank you for the invitation, for sharing. Inspiration. And it goes back to, my childhood. When I was young, I had a neighbor across the street whose son was my best friend. His father was a firefighter. And watching him, go to work, some days he would leave home, uniform, get in his car, lunch pail, drive off to work. Then there's other days I've seen him many times with golf clubs. And I'm like, and I would call my friend, like, is your father still a firefighter? He said, yeah, but he only has to go on certain days. And that was my first interest, like, wow. So he enjoyed life, but then he's going to work. Then there was another moment where we was invited up to the station to visit his dad while he was at work. And to see him in uniform and also at the same time spend time with his family. We was in the back of the firehouse, and we was throwing football with one another. Then after that, my friend and I continued to throw the football. And he sat down with his wife at the picnic table and talked. And minutes later, alarm went off. He jumped on. He gave her a hug, kissed her goodbye, jumped on the truck, and drove off lights and sirens. And I called my like, wow, I like that. It's like everything without a cape on. And the moment that stood out for me and the most was, again, I was with my friend, his dad, and his dad was off duty. And we were taking a ride in his car. And I'll never forget, we witnessed a traffic accident at Middlebelt and Cherry Hill. And his father pulled over to the side. He jumped out, before the emergency workers arrived. He began to administer CPR to the mother. And within a flash, he had the child in his hand, walking them up to the medical unit when they arrived. And that right there was my inspiration. Said, yes, that's what I want to do. I want to serve my community. I want to be a firefighter.
Phenomenal. Thank you so much for sharing. I know your career is very demanding mentally, physically, and emotionally. Please tell us, how do you prepare to do your job?
Pray. Every morning, pray. Thanking for the knowledge, the strength, the ability. Training is a very important part of our job. We train daily, physically and mentally. Of course, with changes in the world from automation automobiles, the construction of automobiles, the construction of our homes, training and educating ourselves on how to do the job and do it safely, correctly. Preparing physically. I have a mental workout where there's times where I just sit back, I tune everything out, I cut off the sports, I cut off the phone, and I meditate. I have a physical training that prepares me where I'm in the gym every other day. And also my wife. My wife keeps me mentally stable and prepares me to continue. Despite the challenges, just go back. You have to serve your community.
Beautiful. Tell me more about your training. Tell me a bit about following high school. What were the next steps for you?
Um, that's another story when itself. Following high school, my first training was mental. My first training was spiritual. You know, my mother used to drag me to church, and I mean also drag me, but that's what has me running the church today. And going to church with my mother, pastors and everyone would say, you know, you're going to be saving lives. You're going to be talking to people. You're going to be you're going to be educating everyone. And I would kindly look over at my mother cross-eyed, like, I don't know about that, Mom. That's not me. But God has a plan, and no one can take that away. And sure enough, I'm saving lives. I'm talking with folks. So my first piece of training was Schoolcraft College. I joined the fire academy there. At the same time, I was working during the day, and I was taking night classes. We have a fire 1 level and a firefighter 2 level. I was taking classes twice a week, 2 nights a week. After that, I began to spend more time with the auxiliary program for the city of Inkster. And that training there was more of physical training, more mental training, how to deal with the public, how to deal with coworkers. And also, it's a challenge dealing with yourself when you're put in life-threatening situations to say, okay, this is what I really want to do. And after that, you have to be mentally prepared and trained to go back and say, yes. Training after Schoolcraft College, I've taken much more training in-state, out-of-state for firefighting, automobile extrication, high-angle rescue, confined space. You know, I try to remind myself and tell my coworkers, if there's ever a time on this job where you think you know it all, it's time to retire. Training is a big part of this job because, as I said before, everything is changing always, and I'm happy to be an adjunct instructor at our training facility, and training with me is very important.
I hear your dedication in your voice. I hear the experiences that you had from church, from listening to pastors, from listening to your mom, and then looking at where you ended up. It is amazing. It is amazing. When you think about all that you have been through and prepared to do, I would like, if you could, to back up in time. One of your first experiences with dealing with an emergency. Take us back to year 1, if you can recall. You're 27 years in, 20 with the Detroit Fire Department, but back us up in time to year 1 or 2 when you were having to make sure you were mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually prepared to do your job.
There was a real challenging, frightening moment within my career. I was working within the city of Highland Park, and it was a second alarm fire, vacant apartment building. We arrived on scene, flames showing, of course, smoke showing, and my crew and I, we went in, we did what's known as a fast attack. We did an interior attack. We went in and we knocked the fire down, we contained it from spreading. So my partner and I, we went back out, to catch our breath, to get us a little rehab. And 5 minutes after we, sat down, the chief came over the radio saying that there's still more fire inside. There's fire located on the 3rd floor, which at that time we have exhausted all of our ladders. I looked over at my partner. He looked at me. He said, let's go get it. So we went in through the stairwell, made it up to the 3rd floor. We were met with heat and smoke. We got closer to the fire. Our plan was to go to a window facing the alley and receive the hose line from the window. So as we were walking, as we get closer, We start to get down on our knees because, of course, it's getting warmer, it's getting hotter. And I can see the window sill from maybe about 6 feet away. So as I'm crawling closer to the window to retrieve the hose line, not knowing there was a hole before the window. And I went through, and as I was just falling, just involuntary, I can, I can just hear the voice in my head, like, Lord, take me. I went down, I hit a beam, I broke that wooden beam. It started to knock me backwards. I hit my head, and at that time, involuntary, just, my daughter's name, Ashley. And I began to fall forward. And then when I fell, I finally fell, and I hit the basement floor from the 3rd floor. And I didn't move, and I didn't say anything, but I can hear the crew members calling my name. I can hear the sirens flash, and I can hear the horns blowing. And seconds later, my partner jumped from the 2nd floor down to where I was at. His boots landed right next to my head. He said, "Come on, let's go. We got to get out of here." And that moment, since then, early in my career, that did, let's say, sustain in me that this is what I want to do, and making it out of that, he has a plan for me. And no one, nothing, can stop that. And he's always with me.
What an amazing sharing. You touched on teamwork. Tell us more about how you operate as a team. I heard you share how you and your partner went in, and then you came out for a short reprieve, and then you get information that you've got to go back in. I hear you share how your partner came from the 3rd floor to receive you and get you out. Tell me about that teamwork, that camaraderie that you have in your job.
Sure. Dr. Furman, the teamwork starts hours, days before the fire. Teamwork starts when we first arrive in the morning. They say it's a firehouse for a reason, because everything you do at your house, you're allowed to do at the firehouse. When we come in the morning, everyone is greeted. The guys that's coming to work are greeting one another. The guys that are leaving to work, we're glad to see them. They're making, they made it through the night. And all different details of that day are passed out. Who's cooking, who's cleaning, who's watching the radio. And throughout the day and throughout days of working with one another, teamwork, trust, honesty, dedication becomes a part of your job. Teamwork is a very important, vital part of the job, because you never know when there's going to be a situation when you're going to need someone or they're going to need you. And so we try to, like I said, we train together, we eat together, we cook together, we sleep under the same roof every night. And that is a very, very building block of teamwork. And it has kept us together. It works. There's times when not even firefighter related, that we will sit down at the kitchen table and you have 2 guys just uplifting and talking and motivating another guy about personal issues he's having at home. So teamwork, it's a must within the fire service.
It truly sounds like it. It sounds like a family. It sounds like coordination of schedules, duties, responsibilities that all of you are engaged in, as well as support and motivation to be your very, very best. What an amazing opportunity to have. And I know that you had indicated that you work 24 hours on and 24 hours off. When you described your friend from childhood and how you saw his father having fun on his days off with his golf clubs, and then recognizing that he also was saving a life from a car accident, the idea of being so flexible. Tell me a little bit more about the variety of duties that you do in the community. where it may be a little bit different than a fire emergency?
Sure. Within the community and the fire service, I try to teach oncoming new hires that being a firefighter is more than just running to smoke and flames. Being a firefighter, on an average, at a house fire or building fire, that's an hour. We have a 24-hour schedule. So there's 23 other hours within the day that you have to represent as being a firefighter. And the majority of that time is educating the public, being a service to the public. There's times when we go out and we educate our seniors on a proper placement of smoke detectors. We educate our youngsters on how to become a firefighter. Education, education, education. Taking care of our citizens in ways of any way we can, whether it's helping install smoke detectors, whether it's putting car seats in their cars. We don't turn down any way at all that we can help, and it's an amazing opportunity to serve the public and to just show them how much we care.
Fabulous. I want to back up to one of the traits you said that's important in becoming a firefighter and in the firehouse, and that is trust. As you look at potentially new individuals wanting to become firefighters, what is it that you're looking for in those young people, older people who are changing careers and have an interest in becoming a firefighter? What is it that will give you some insight into them and whether or not they'd be a good fit as a firefighter?
Once, my first initial impression is the perseverance, the ability to push through. You know, being an emergency worker, there's no time that we can say, no, we're not coming. Whether it's due to weather, lack of manpower, you call, we're coming. So looking at new hires, I look at perseverance. How much are they willing to do the job? Because we got to show up, and this job is definitely, it's a calling. It's a calling that you have to have in you. You have to know that mentally. You are never going to get compensated for what you deserve for risking your life, you know, and not only your life, but then that's the life that you share with your spouse, your kids, your family. So knowing that and knowing that the demand that you have to meet, how much are you willing to train, as I mentioned earlier, that lets me know if this man or woman will be a good fit for our team.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. I'm thinking about the calling, the absolute indicator that says this is what you've chosen as a career, this is what you've chosen as a profession, and are really devoting your life, physically, your life to this endeavor. This is emergency on call all of the time, because you're absolutely right. When you get the call, you have to go. Your work has changed in the 27 years that you've been a firefighter, I'm sure. Can you identify in any one or two ways how you see where you began 27 years ago and how it is now?
Today, they have implemented a lot of technology. It has been a surprise to a lot of us because no matter what we're faced with, it is going to be more of a physical demand, whether it's fighting fire, putting water on the fire, CPR on an unconscious patient. But they have found ways to implement technology to help us out. We have what we call TICs, thermal imaging cameras, where 20 years ago, you just had to trust your senses, fighting through heat, smoke, black smoke where you couldn't see sometimes your hand in front of your face. They have given us cameras where now we can hold the camera and the camera can see 10, 20 feet in front of us through the same black smoke. And so going from, or let's just say adding that technology along with your experience, it has been a tremendous boost within our fire service. On the medical side, we have different equipment where we have monitors that we can hook up to our patients and while we're doing CPR, and it'll give us clues to whether we need to pump faster, pump harder, pump slower, and it even cheers us how good we're doing. Unlike some of our other, like say, educators or businessmen, where virtual technology has taken a part, unfortunately, we don't have that. Like say, if the bell rings, we still have to go. We can't, zoom in on the fire and ask it to go out. we can't talk or zoom at a patient who's unconscious. We have to show up. Technology has been a big part in our training, though. Right now, we don't have to take such risks just in training no longer. We have virtual platforms. We have virtual simulators that we can stand in front of and get the same exact training, but at a lower risk, and better safety.
Wonderful. In your imagination, what do you think could possibly improve in the next 5 years surrounding technology and firefighting?
What can we possibly improve? Help in responding. Mm-hmm. Responding. Technology can help us with our vehicles. Right now, we're receiving vehicles right now with cameras on all four sides, with just like the new automobiles with assisted braking. Mm-hmm. They have implemented that in our vehicles, and it if you look at statistics, it has shown the dramatic decrease in accidents responding to emergencies, and so they can continue to implement technology within responding, and then also, as I mentioned before, just locating victims that we can get to faster. With more cameras, instead of it being a handheld camera. Mount the camera to our face pieces, and then that gives us, both hands free to do other jobs, to use our other tools. Technology has brought us a long way, but still, without the experience and without the physical capabilities, we would still need to rely on training.
I believe you. As you share, I'm thinking about, we don't have Google to ask exactly how many folks are inside the property. The goal would be to continue to save lives, continue to assist, continue to support. I heard you say that you just came from a 2-alarm fire. Would you tell us the challenges when you have a 2-alarm fire? You expressed that that's another house coming in to assist. What was today like with the weather conditions that we currently have? I'm thinking about Texas and the snow that they are having and how they are out of power. So the challenges in one state could be very different, but give us some clues about what this morning's experience was like before you came to this podcast still awake. Thank you.
As you mentioned, Dr. Furman, Michigan weather, it's something that we have to deal with, and it's something we get used to. From the time the moment the bell rings, the weather conditions, the icy roads, of course, that's going to slow down our response. Once we do arrive, now we have to walk through the snow. There's no running to the door, to the front porch. You have to walk to make sure you're not slipping and sliding injured before you get there. Once again, training is a big part of different and fighting fires at different seasons. During the summer, you may have a moment where you will, place your tool on the ground while you, prepare, button up, put your self-contained breathing apparatus on. But in the winter, you have to be mindful, well, if I set it in the snow and it get kicks over, it's going to delay me, some more seconds, with seconds count on finding my tool now that's lost in the snow. But the bigger challenge is in fighting with the weather is once the fire has been extinguished and the residents need somewhere to go. Now they're out. Not only are they out of their home, but now they're out in the cold. So the biggest challenge is after that is consoling them and, as I said, educating them, giving them the right contact information, and so that they can receive some help, so they can receive some shelter.
Thank you. I know that communication is crucial in emergency situations. Listening to your partners, following instructions, making quick decisions, all seems to take place so fast. Tell me how you do it.
Knowing, trusting your partners. Technology, as you say, communication with our radios. When we arrive, pretty much, as I remember saying back in the beginning of our day, when we passing out those duties on who's cooking, who's cleaning, then there's also our responsibility on the fire ground. Each individual has a task to make things smooth, starting from our incident commander, our chief. Once he shows up, which way are we going to attack? Is this going to be an offensive attack or is this going to be a defensive attack? Once we get those orders and we have the total situation in mind, whether this is a vacant structure, whether it's occupied structure, is there anyone inside? We connected to a good water source. Once we have those down, and I'm speaking in a matter of minutes once we arrive, once we have those questions answered, everyone has a task to do. Whether you're going through the front door with the water source or whether you're on the roof with an axe, ventilating. It becomes a team that if everyone is playing their part, doing their role, things can get handled much faster, much sooner, much smoother, and much more safely.
It sounds exactly how a well-oiled machine works. Thank you so much for sharing. We have much more to come. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back.
SF Hardy presents Dancing Monkeys in My Soup. While on vacation in Peru, Jabbar discovers pygmy marmosets dancing in his dinner soup.
There's something in it!
Leaving the family alarmed and confused. Wow. They don't know how to get the monkeys out of the soup. Do you? SF Hardy, literacy advocate, author, and founder of Get Litty Family Reading Readiness Program, presents Dancing Monkeys in My Soup.
Here at Felt Smart, we challenge the mind and awaken the senses through every fun felt experience.
We're gonna make pineapple and broccoli cheese pizza.
The Pizza Eco Wall provides a variety of games that teach math, memory,
with a yummy cheesy twist.
Toddlers love to play
Peekaboo
while discovering the hidden treasures on the Lift-A-Flap Eco Wall. They will strengthen their memories, learn animal recognition, cause and effect, all while making cute animal sounds.
A ballet dancer helps children talk about good touch and bad touch with comfortable, fun activities for everyone.
Weather outside today, Layla. It's gloomy.
The Weather Palace teaches children to observe the weather, drip, drop, and then decide what is the best way to dress for today.
Be smart, feel smart, felt smart.
Good morning. Welcome back. We are chatting with Eric Ivey, a firefighter of 27 years, 20 with the Detroit Fire Department, who is sharing with us a lot of his professional experience. And this morning he arrived just following a 2-alarm fire. Tell us a little bit about that this morning.
Dr. Furman, the first thing I must say is once again, thanking God above. No citizen was injured. No one was transported. There was no need for any medical assistance. All the co-workers were safely, taken back home.
Beautiful.
We received a call this morning, possibly sometime around 4 a.m., of an occupied apartment fire. All companies responding, be aware that there may be still people inside. So then right there, that takes you up to another level of awareness, right? You start thinking from that moment leaving the station, what are my duties? What am I doing first? What am I checking for first? What apartment buildings? Making sure everyone gets out, making sure the total building's evacuated. Fortunately, we arrived on scene fast enough to create a fast attack. And what that is, that's an interior attack where we go inside and we meet the fire head on. First arriving crew, they went in, they announced that they were stretching line to the second floor. They arrived at the apartment door. They contained the fire to the first and only apartment that was involved. And it's a blessing because I have seen within my years where it can get to the roof, common attic, and it can take off the whole entire building in a matter of minutes. Hats off to my team, my coworkers. Building wasn't there was no need to evacuate the apartment building in such cold weather, and it's a blessing to be able to serve. It's a blessing to be able to be on a team to conduct such safety for our community, for our citizens. And after that, we wrap back up. We make sure we put our equipment back together. We make sure everyone's safe. Everyone's no injuries. We pack up and we head back home. Get ready for the next one.
My. I hear you giving all praises to God. Your life is here, present in this room, as well as everybody went home safe. No one was injured today. That is a miracle. Would you please share a bit about what happens when you encounter an angry citizen, perhaps someone who has a loved one on the inside that they want to try and get out? How do you manage someone who's very upset, afraid, nervous about what's happening when you arrive?
Dr. Furman, believe it or not, that is a tool that I use. And it's not so, on those moments, on those scenes, you will find more of a frightened family member, a frightened mother. And the tool that I use is if we have reports leaving the station that there's someone maybe someone trapped in the building, mentally I prepare, okay, well again, what's my first steps, what's my first actions when I go into the structure. But the very first tool that I use is a family member on that scene. If you have a mother who has a child in that building, and I have on $1,000 worth of safety equipment that I need to don on before I go in and inhale this toxic smoke, this heat from this flame. But if you have that mother who's on scene and she's trying to get past you with just her house coat on, that's an alert for me that, yes, there's someone inside there. And that lets me know that we're not coming out until we find that loved one. And then there's other times when we show up and they may, just nonchalantly say, yeah, I think someone's in there. Well, I still use that as a tool. So when I'm searching, I do a primary search, go in there just to make sure and double check that, okay, they thought someone in here, but let's confirm that there's no one in here. But when that mother or that father is trying to get past you and, without any idea of what they may encounter, that's a tool that I use. And dealing with those, individuals, those citizens, it's not as difficult as it may seem. They can be a big help to us a lot of times. When we show up, they are willing to, give us advice on where are the stairs located, which bedroom that person may be in. It's really, really a help to us dealing with calm citizens, and there's been a few times when you have to deal with, angry citizens, but at that time it goes back to educating them, reminding them, you called because this is an emergency. There's a possibly, life-threatening emergency. So help me help you. And once you get that into them and you remind them of that, they become more of a tool, a coworker, a partner themselves. It's fascinating. I've been on scenes, so many scenes where I've been on medical scenes, and the family member will, think that we're not pumping fast enough, we're not moving fast enough, and I will say anything such as, okay, if you can hold this air bottle for me and hold it upright, that'd be very important. And that angry son or that angry father look as though, oh, he just took on he's just been hired on a team, on the job. And there's been moments where we can just ask the angry citizen, in order to calm down, okay, can you help us out? Can you make us a path? Can you start shoveling snow? And so while we in there treating the patient, the citizen, they're out shoveling snow from front to back, sidewalk, to the neighbor's house, to the corner. So there's ways to do it, and again, it comes with experience, but it's a challenge that we face and we handle.
So eloquently spoken. What I'm thinking about is my profession and how being calm gets me much further than the potential of being upset with someone. So staying calm sounds like it's another tool that you use in your job as well. Would you agree that firefighters possess a variety of very important traits like dedication, integrity, physical fitness, problem-solving skills, and a major concern for others? What do you think about those attributes that I just mentioned?
They are highly needed within the fire service. They are highly demanded within the fire service. As you say, when you show up for duty, you don't know what you may be faced with. You're not sitting behind the desk. You don't have a script to follow. You don't have an appointment book. Anything can happen at any moment. And that can be within the firehouse with coworkers. That can be on the fire scene with coworkers and citizens. It is highly demanded that you persevere. You get through it. You handle it calmly. Treat people the way you would like to be treated. And I would say practice. As I say, you can be faced with different situations, just beginning with the address on a fire scene. This house is not constructed the way the same house was, 2 hours ago. On the medical scene, you can be dealing with a younger age patient versus an older patient, someone who can verbally respond to someone who is nonverbal. As you go through your day, you're going to be faced with different challenges from different areas. And knowing how to, talk to people, knowing how to treat people, knowing how to face each circumstance with a calm mind, calm sense, it'll get you through the day.
Wonderful. I know that you have trained for this position. You have 27 years of experience, but can you identify anything that was not taught in your training that makes a difference every day that you work?
Honestly, cooking. That's something that they don't teach at the fire academy, and believe it or not, it has become a vital part in our day. I mean, you can be you can be preparing a meal for 4 guys who all have different diets to 12 guys 12 angry men who just want meat and potatoes. But no, seriously, training that has been implemented without the academy is again, knowing how to address the citizens, knowing how to be a servant to the public, knowing that you took on a duty that I am here to serve you, and because I have on a uniform and badge, I'm no bigger, no better than you. Training on how to educate our citizens. You know, when we're called for emergency purposes. And a lot of times we will get calls where a senior may just have a toe that's hurting. And you have to know and have the mindset that, okay, although they called us and this is not an emergency, let's see how we can make them feel better. Let's give them the correct information. Let's give them the correct instructions on how to handle this situation with your toe that's hurting that will make them in a better, calmer sense even after we leave, whether we transport to the hospital or whether we don't. So what can help us also throughout our day that's not taught in a book, that's not taught in the academy, would be just self-compassion. Mm-hmm. Self-compassion.
I certainly agree. I think that is a key part, because when you arrive and can feel compassion for another human being, you get to express that totally in your position. You may not be transporting, you may not be using a fire hose, but your words can be so comforting for someone in need. Tell me a little bit about how you think, if we do enough in terms of educating safety programs for school-age children, how could the fire departments improve?
We can improve by, well, we have, through our community relations department, we have a smoke trailer where, when invited, our community relations team will take a smoke trailer out to different senior homes, different schools, recreation centers, and they fill it full of smoke. This is non-toxic smoke. And we educate our youngsters on stop, drop, and roll, how to evacuate. We educate our seniors on fire prevention, which is a big help. Teaching our community on how to avoid fire will be a tremendous help upon within the fire service. Fire prevention is such a vital key in keeping our community safe and saving lives. We teach on how not to barbecue, I should say, within a home, how to take outdoor equipment, use it strictly outdoors. And if we can just continue to educate and inform our public, have a better relationship and understanding with the public, and how important the little things from changing your batteries in your smoke detectors every 6 months, that will be a tremendous boost in fire service and also in saving lives within our community.
I agree, and I think that education is so necessary, from youngsters to seniors, to know how to manage when there is an emergency. And there we are again talking about education. We're talking about making sure that people have knowledge. Today's podcast is to talk about wellness for firefighters, to take a peek at how you manage stress. Now I'm dipping into your personal life. I'd like to explore, if after you've had a hard day at work, how do you manage stress? I heard you indicate that when you had that accident in that building when you were very early in your career and you remembered calling on your daughter's name and talking to God. Tell me how and what you do to manage stress, please.
Luckily, I'm married to a wonderful, beautiful educator, and I think I can speak for a lot of my coworkers. Having that spouse, that friend, that partner who understands your demand, who understands your need when you're at work, the demands physically, the demands mentally, the stress that you try not to bring home from your job, but there's a lot of times when not saying anything can be worse than saying something. And so when I come home, my wife she instantly can see whether this is a day to allow me to relax, take a nap, meditate, or is it something that's been on my mind that needs to be spoke, needs to be shared. Another thing that I do is, again, I talk to God, I pray, attend church, and the main thing is thanking Him for being with me. That's my biggest piece, my biggest tool. Thanking Him for keeping me, coming and going to work, responding to emergencies, giving me the knowledge, the courage, the mental strength to be a help to someone in need. After that, physical fitness and dieting is a big plus. Spending time in the gym, making sure your health, your strength is well kept. Dieting, making sure your endurance is there, making sure you can last, an hour of physical endurance. And it all comes in strides, and that is a big part in why we have the schedule that we have, the unique schedule. 24 hours of emergency response, up and down in the middle of the night, raining, cold, heat. You're supposed to take that next 24 hours to detox, to relax, mentally and physically. And that 24-hour period and that schedule is a big part of our career that helps us out.
I know that sometimes there may be emergencies that last beyond your shift that may also make you unavailable to your family to connect, to get that rest. How do you deal when you've worked overtime?
Dr. Furman, it's a firehouse. And everything you could do at home, you do there. So when needed, hey, team, I need that beautiful face, that beautiful smile. I need that long, pretty hair to come up and give me a visit, to encourage me that, I have something to look forward to. I have a reason to push through my day to make it home. So there's been moments I will call my wife up, sit down, have a talk, share my meal, share dinner. And that right there is a big plus. It motivates me to continue to get through the day after those hours. And it's been real challenging recently. We just begun to share our medical response with our EMS division. So there are days where 24 hours, I'm 30 minutes from the end of my shift, and I would get a call from my chief saying, hey, I need a favor. EMS needs help. We need you to do another 12. Really? I'm about to go home, but I need you. And those are the days that have been challenging. But with the understanding and the patience with my wife at home and the demand in me to get the job done, the demand to help the community, to remind myself it's a calling that will be rewarded. It gets us through those extra long hours that you're asking.
Wow. Intense. Always a need, and to know that you can fulfill it. Back us up in time before you got married, when you were dating your wife. How was it dating, knowing your schedule and your commitment to your career?
Dr. Furman, again, I got to give thumbs up to the fire service. It has been a tremendous part of my life, professionally and personally. Through the fire department and coworkers is how I met my wife. One of my lieutenants introduced me to her about 8 years ago, and telling her and describing to her my schedule, my duties. I think she looked forward more to the days off than me going. And she paid attention to the time that we can use to travel. You know, having a schedule where we're working 24 hours Monday, we're off Tuesday, we're working 24 hours Wednesday, but then we're off for another 3 days. I think that was the tunnel vision that gave her that, hey, wait a minute, that's shopping, that's sitting at home, that's together time, that's traveling. But fire service has been a big help in my life personally. As I said, that's how I met my wife. I've met friends. I've traveled with coworkers. We spend much time, with each other's families off duty, and it's rewarding, very.
Neat. Now, I have a difficult question to ask. I don't know if this has occurred in your 27 years where a firefighter has lost his or her life. If that has occurred, would you please share?
And I'm sure I would love to share, inspire. Hopefully this will inspire a lot of people who are listening. Unfortunately, we lost a real good team member, a leader, a father, a husband. Sergeant Savard Johnson, this past summer, great guy, great friend. And let me start by saying, or repeating a story he shared with us. There was one incident where they responded to a occupied house fire. He was one of the first arriving companies that arrived on scene. He went inside, despite the smoke, despite the heat. They were looking for possible victims inside. While they were searching, Sergeant Johnson himself became trapped inside. He got complacent. But he tells the story on how he didn't give up. And what went through his mind was seeing his daughter with open arms as he came home the next morning. So that's what pushed him, although he had, debris fall on top of him, tangled in wires, seeing his daughter, hearing his daughter once again is what gave him that extra strength, that motivation to stand, fight through, do what he had to do to get out. And fortunately, he made it out on time before things got, out of control. Unfortunately, while off duty, Sergeant Johnson and his daughter were at Belle Isle, spending family time, Belle Isle Beach. And it goes back to when I was saying being a firefighter is a calling, 24 hour, 24 off. It doesn't matter whether you're in uniform, whether you're in street clothes. His daughter and himself were at the beach. He noticed two younger ladies out having difficulties in the water, drowning. And Sergeant Johnson, being dedicated to the service, he went in after them. He went in, he told his daughter to stay here, I'll be right back. He went out, he did what he had to do. Fortunately, he saved those two lives. But then they noticed once everybody made it back to shore and all attention went to the two civilians who were in trouble, no one thought about Sergeant Johnson. And so there was like 30 minutes had gone by, and they finally saw his daughter up on the beach and, hey, what's going on? And she said, I'm waiting for my daddy to come. And I was one of the ones who were there the moment we got the news, responded to Belle Isle, stayed for hours, and standing on that shore, listening to him tell that story about going home to see his daughter. And it's a tragic that we lost a good brother in this same sense where his daughter is waiting on the beach for him to come to her just as she would be at home, waiting for him to come after a shift. But standing there that whole evening, through the wee nights after midnight, hoping that, we're going to get our brother, hoping he's just somewhere down the river holding on to a branch. He's waiting for us. That right there was a threatening moment of, do we continue to go on? How do we continue to go on? And it's got to remind yourself, it's a calling. It's a calling.
Thank you so much for sharing that story. It is sad to have a loss of a colleague and to be standing there looking at his daughter and recognizing the pain that she is experiencing and his story, what he chose to share. The focus I really want you to get today, firefighters, is that your wellness, your well-being, the good that you do for the community has to be taken into effect as well. How you take care of yourself mentally, emotionally, physically, first for yourself and then for your families is so, so crucial. I want you to know how grateful we are for all of the great work that you do surrounding our communities and making sure that we are in the best shape that we can be. Your work has been so beneficial to so many people. We have been dealing with a pandemic, which makes things even a little more challenging. As we look at what is going on in our world, the community needs you. We congratulate you on all that you have gifted us. Your personal life is as important as your professional life. You want to make sure that you are doing everything you can do to take care of yourself. Any closing comments? Firefighter?
Sure. Once again, I say thank you to the staff. Thank you to Dr. Furman for having me, for giving me the opportunity to share my thoughts, my stories, and hopefully we can just continue to inspire some of the younger generations that are coming behind us that this is a much needed career. It's a rewarding career. And if you want to be a hero, it's real. Don't stop dreaming. Never stop dreaming. And it's possible. And the compensation, the rewards, the pat on the backs, the cheers, they're waiting for you. So please, look into being a first responder, whether it's police, whether it's fire, whether it's nursing, whether it's education. Be prepared to serve and give back to what has been given to you.
Thank you so much for sharing. It is my great honor to be here with Eric Ivey from the Detroit Fire Department on this day to thank you all. Dr. Pauline Furman, closing. Thank you again.
Thank you.